The world isn't run by armies anymore. It's run by data, money, and algorithms. But if wars aren't fought on battlefields, where are they fought? And if territory isn't the key to power, what is? Welcome to the new era of geopolitics, where hacking is a weapon, trade deals are battlegrounds, and nations don't need to invade to conquer. Let's dive in. Geopolitics is basically the world's ultimate power game, a mix of strategy, survival, and occasionally, sheer pettiness. At its core, it's about how geography shapes power, politics, and international relations. But what used to be a simple game of who controls the most land wins has evolved into something much more complex. Back in the day, classical geopolitics was all about territory. Thinkers like Halford Mackinder, Alfred Thayer Mahan, and Nicholas Spykman developed theories that shaped military strategies for decades. Mackinder's Heartland theory argued that controlling Eurasia's interior meant controlling the world. His famous line, "Who rules East Europe commands the Heartland. Who rules the Heartland commands the world island. Who rules the world island commands the world." Basically, his whole deal was that landlocked superpowers were the real puppet masters. Mahan, on the other hand, had a different take. He believed in naval dominance. Why bother fighting for land when you can control the oceans and cut off trade routes? His ideas shaped the naval strategies of the British Empire, the United States, and pretty much every country that realized ships are just floating fortresses. Then came Spykman, who threw a curveball. He argued that the coastal regions around Eurasia, the Rimland, were actually the key to world domination. His theories heavily influenced U.S. containment policies during the Cold War, because if you can't control the heartland, you might as well box it in. At the time, geopolitics was a very physical game. Land grabs, buffer zones, and military alliances were the name of the game. The two world wars and the Cold War played out like a live-action demonstration of these theories, with nations fighting over territory, resources, and strategic positions. But just when world leaders thought they had the rulebook figured out, modern geopolitics changed the game. Fast forward to the late 20th and early 21st centuries, and suddenly, classical geopolitics started to feel outdated. The rise of multinational corporations, international organizations, and cybercriminal networks created a new kind of battlefield. Power wasn't just about tanks and borders anymore. It was about controlling economies, supply chains, and digital infrastructure. Countries no longer needed to physically occupy land to exert dominance. They could do it through financial dependence, digital surveillance, and strategic alliances. Technology took geopolitics to an entirely new level. Suddenly, you didn't need an army to disrupt a country. You just needed a laptop and some Wi-Fi. Cyber warfare became a legitimate threat, with state-sponsored hacking, digital espionage, and election interference making traditional military strategies look downright old-fashioned. Cyber attacks on infrastructure, manipulation of public opinion through AI, and digital surveillance turned the internet into the newest battleground. Take the U.S. China rivalry. It's not about who has more land, it's about who controls the future of technology. From semiconductor production to artificial intelligence, both countries are locked in a competition that will shape the next century. Whoever wins this race doesn't just control a country, they control the entire global economy. Of course, economics still plays a massive role in geopolitics. Trade wars, currency manipulation, and economic sanctions have replaced traditional warfare in many cases. A perfect example? China's Belt and Road Initiative. Instead of conquering land with armies, China is building ports, highways, and railways across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Countries that accept China's investments often find themselves financially tied to Beijing, giving China the kind of influence that military occupation never could. Meanwhile, natural resources are becoming another front in modern geopolitical battles. Energy security is a growing concern, with oil, gas, and rare earth minerals dictating power dynamics. Climate change is also forcing nations to rethink their strategies. Rising sea levels, resource shortages, and environmental crises are becoming as significant as traditional military threats. Who controls the world's lithium supply? Who has access to fresh water? These questions are now shaping global power structures just as much as military alliances once did. We can see this shift playing out in real-world conflicts. Take Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It's got classic geopolitics written all over it. Russia wants strategic territory, buffer zones, and influence over former Soviet regions. But the response? That's where modern geopolitics takes center stage. Economic sanctions, cyber warfare, and globalized supply chain disruptions have played a massive role in the war's outcome. Meanwhile, U.S. China tensions aren't about land grabs. They're about trade wars, tech restrictions, and financial dominance. This is where geoeconomics comes into play. The idea that economic tools, not military force, are the primary weapons of statecraft. Restricting access to semiconductors, controlling rare earth minerals, and monopolizing digital platforms are now just as effective as any invasion. So what does the future of geopolitics look like? Classical geopolitics still matters. After all, Russia just proved that territorial ambitions aren't going away anytime soon. But modern geopolitics is evolving fast. Economic power, cyber capabilities, and environmental factors are redefining how nations compete and exert influence. The world is no longer just a chessboard of land-based power struggles. It's a web of financial networks, data infrastructure, and global dependencies. Nations don't need to invade to conquer anymore. They just need to control the right resources, the right supply chains, and the right algorithms. I'll leave you to discuss in the comments. Do you think land still matters in modern geopolitics, or is economic and cyber dominance the real key to power? Support us by subscribing if you haven't already. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and I'll catch you soon in another video.